Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from the Korman Productions Deep Dive TV podcast with my co-host Stacie. We got special guests today, Luke Boyce and Aaron Koontz, creators and writers of Revival, the new sci-fi show that we've been talking about. Guys, welcome to the channel.
Thanks for having
Yeah,
us.
yeah, lovely to be here.
It's definitely an honor to talk to you both.
Thank you very much.
Aaron, I've had a question for a while now. Do you have any relation to Dean Koontz, the author?
If you Google search my name, you'll see that it says, "Is Aaron related to Dean Koontz?" I'm just my whole goal in life is to reach a point where it says, "Is Dean Koontz related to Aaron?" Because that's all I want to do is change the Google search order. No, sadly, I am not. I wish because I would have the rights to a lot of pretty awesome books, and it would have set up my career a little easier. But no, did not get the Dean Koontz push, if you will.
Yeah, it's funny. I've seen that question like all over the place in socials. Even my mom, I was talking to her about interviewing you guys, and that was her first question. She was like, "Is he related to Dean Koontz?" I was like, "I don't know. Like, that's not what we're here for."
The
No.
funny thing, the first big movie experience I had of being on a set was for a movie called Watchers Reborn, which was based off of the Dean Koontz book Watchers. It starred Mark Hamill, which was amazing. I think I was 14 at the time.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, funny enough,
Well,
it all comes
there you
around.
go. Full
All right.
circle.
So, what exactly
Let's
attract?
start with a spoiler alert
Okay, yeah, okay.
to our audience because we're talking about a big episode today. We're talking about episode 6, Bloodlines. So if you haven't watched episode 6 yet, specifically Peacock viewers, you're not there yet. You're going to want to bookmark this video, come back to it later. Make sure you have watched episode 6 before you watch the rest of this video because we're going to get into it. And there are big spoilers here if you haven't seen it. So go get caught up and then come back.
All right. So, what specifically attracted you guys to this series?
Oh man.
To the
What
project.
attracted me was
Yeah, like
Luke.
what how did we go from like how did you both get involved in picking up turning the Revival comics into a show? Like take us through that journey and how did you two start working together and
Journey is
where
the
did it all come from?
Yeah, journey is the apt word. It's been a minute. Yeah, so back in like 2016, I met Tim Seeley and Mike Norton, the creators of the comic. So they're Chicago natives, so I'm in the Chicago area. And we started talking about, doing something together, and they brought up the idea. They're like, well, Revival is available. And I was a huge fan of the comic. I didn't tell them that at the time, but I was kind of screaming internally, and pursued it with them. Started talking to them about what we would do. We were going to make it as a film for a while, and then after Tim and I worked on a project called Revealer, which is my feature film debut, and Aaron produced that, came on board as a producer for that. And so we started talking. Aaron was giving me notes in the post process, and we kind of formed kind of a nice little creative relationship. I just really valued his input, and we realized we had a lot of things in common and saw eye to eye creatively on a lot of things. And so I was like, listen, I've got this project I've been trying to get off the ground for a while. Would love to see what you think about it. And I sent him the comic, and he read it, and we just started talking and riffing about what this could be. And Aaron was, really pushed the idea of turning it into a TV show. We'd thought about it before, but just that space, we work in the independent film space, and the TV space is, much harder to do. It's much harder to get into, and so, but Aaron had a lot of relationships that turned out very advantageous in this scenario, and we started talking to SyFy, and the rest is history.
Yeah, yeah. I had not read the comic. I knew a little of Tim's work. I'd heard of Revival. I knew of Hack Slash. I'd read a little bit of Hack Slash, so that was kind of my introduction to Tim Seeley's work. And yeah, just I remember giving those notes to Luke in Revealer, that movie, which we make things that are not REV named movies and shows. But the amount of times we would call one revival and one Revealer was such a thing for way too long.
Still.
But I remember giving these notes to Luke, and I'm like, oh my God, this guy's gonna hate me. Like I've got so many notes, and like, but I really saw, I thought it was a good movie, and I thought it could just be even better. and I was like, oh, well, let's see. And he was just so kind and understanding and looked at it from a different point of view and understood that like I'm just trying to make a better movie with you too. And we really kind of hit it off. And I just I saw that there was a lot in common about, and little did I know how much Luke and I would actually have in common later as we became better friends. But there was just something there that just really clicked. And when he said, "Hey, I got this project, I would like for you to take a look at it," and he sent me the comics, and I read that first issue and just fell in love. And I was like, "This is a pilot. Like this just feels like a pilot." And he's like, "Well, what do you know? We actually thought it could be a pilot at one point too." And that was a thought, and I was like, no, it is. I'm telling, like I can see it, and said, look, I want to, not only do I want to help produce this thing, but I want to make it. I was just really attached to it, and I said, why don't we do this together? Let's make this thing, and because my main business, quote unquote, is a producer, in the film space, and had done a little bit in TV, but not like this. And so, I'm commonly someone people go to get a project made, get financed, things like that to kind of get things going. But I'm also a writer director myself. But my passion is, I was trying to at that exact time, I was thinking about going to make a feature and that I was writing and directing. And this just kind of, I was like, what if I put my efforts into this? Like, there was just something very appealing about that and us pairing up and working together. And yeah, and then went pitching and, knew the folks over at NBC, and they were actually a pretty quick yes. Now, after the yes, it takes a long time to get made, and we had to write the pilot and do the show Bible and then go through strikes and wait, whatever it was, 2 years. I don't even know how long it actually was, but that took a minute. But the actual process once we were there and going, and I really appreciative of Luke and Tim and everyone for trusting me to be able to go pitch it, and here we are, making a show.
I'm actually kind of curious about the two writer thing. How does that work? How do you divide up the writing of an episode?
It depends on how crazy the moment is. So like in the first few episodes where we were kind of like the pilot, and the second episode we had more time to do it, we would pass drafts back and forth. Or I think in the case of episode 2, we would do different acts, we would take over acts, stuff like that. Later on it became, we still sort of did that, we'd pass drafts back and forth, but we would kind of divide up in terms of like I would often do the outline, sort of just really kind of get a bird's eye view of the structure and try to fill that outline as much as possible. And then I would give it to Aaron. He would kind of fill more details in. He'd do dialogue. Then those things would get refined little by little. But it depends on the episode a little bit. And in the case of episode 6, Aaron did a lot more of the writing. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that we wrote a lot of the episodes, and I think we did 3 in the back half. So we did 6, 8, 8 with Ashley Park, one of our other writers, and then 10. And that was while we were shooting. So there was less time and everything was crazier. So we were having to really divide and conquer a lot in those respects. So I would be working on, say, 8, and Aaron would be writing 6, for instance. And then we would kind of pass that back and do different stuff.
Yeah, and so I started out as a writer. I mean, that's my first passion and my first kind of like what I wanted to be, and still kind of what I love the most more than anything is writing. And I became a director to protect my writing, and became a producer to protect my directing. That's kind of like my trajectory. And then, but I have within my main company, Paper Street Pictures, Cameron Burns is my writing partner there. So I've been writing with another person for many, many years. And Cam and I have written, I don't know, 20 features probably at this point, give or take. So, have a lot of experience with like the draft trading, different things here and there. And then even the first episode, Luke and I had another writer, Michael Marisi, who came on to write as well. And so I'm used to kind of the trading draft process. But yeah, Luke's correct in that everything was a little bit different. Like I do remember, we are both big outliners. So it's like, do an outline, get deeper, get deeper, get deeper, because you have the way, TV writing works. You have a writer's room. They're kind of breaking the structure of the episode. You're deciding the major beats like in the room. Then those beats have to then, which are just bullet points essentially, or note cards. Then that gets turned into an actual outline where you're kind of fleshing out some of the meat and bones of what's there. and then but it's still not a screenplay, it's still not a teleplay. And then I from there, like on six in particular, I remember, we had gone back and forth and had a pretty detailed outline. And then I took that outline, I literally put the outline into Final Draft and then rewrote it as an actual screenplay,
Yeah.
and getting into the whole weeds. And that was like a weekend. Like, and weirdly, a lot of episode six is after that weekend. Like, it's pretty close to, and I remember getting, because the episode is so action packed, and I'm playing all the characters in my head as I'm writing the dialogue and going through the scenes. So I'm Jordan, and then I'm Dana, and I'm, Anthony Check, and I'm, all these things. So I'm getting myself worked up, and I remember getting lightheaded sitting, as I'm writing, because it was so action packed and so many things were going on, and I'm trying to immerse myself in the world. And it was just a weekend where I had to like lock myself away. And then I remember giving, like, okay, here you go, 45 pages, whatever it was, and gave it to Luke like that Tuesday and after that weekend. And it was pretty close to that, I mean, like, honestly, we just trimmed it from there.
Yeah.
We wouldn't really add a lot. So, which is crazy. I mean, God, there are moments in this series where literally I wrote a scene and the next day we were shooting the scene, and sometimes on the day, rewriting a scene and stuff. So it was kind of crazy, but no, the writing process with Luke was wonderful. He's just a very accommodating creative partner, and we just see eye to eye, and very rarely do we disagree. I mean, like, we really don't. I mean, we like the same shit, I mean, the biggest problem with Luke is he's a Lakers fan, and like, so, and he'll get over that at some point, right? And I know he'll grow out of that, right? Appropriately. So, but no, like, it was never a tough process. I mean, from my side. Now, Luke dealing with my writing, I don't know. That's an entirely different thing. Can't speak to that. So.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time just sort of saying, does this make sense? Okay, what do we do here? I mean, it's just a lot of just talking and just like literally just brainstorming out loud and going, is this crazy? Are we crazy? I think we said that quite a lot. I think it was like,
Yeah.
is this really stupid? So,
Yeah. Then I get excited.
yeah,
And it's
exactly.
like, we can't, and the times are like, we can't do that. And I'm like, oh, I guess we kind of have to, don't we? Yeah.
So, coming from the source material of the comics, I'll tell you, I haven't read the comics at all. Dave has started, but you haven't finished, right?
Right. I read very, very little of it.
So, just looking at the 6 episodes that are out there right now, as a base point, how closely are you sticking to what's happening in the comics, and how much of it are you guys just creating a new universe yourselves?
This is a hard question to answer because there are we're not, if you take the structure of the comic and you take the details of the comic, we're not following it very much. I mean, we we are in the sense that like there's big moments that happen. So for instance, in this episode, in the comic, there is a big issue where the Czech brothers, we find out that they have Tommy the Torso as a famous character from the comic. You discover that they've got this reviver and they're cutting his body parts and they're gonna sell them. Right. So that was what we did was we took ideas like that, like stuff in the comic that we really loved, and we sort of posted it up and said, this is a touchstone moment that we wanna, capture, but we want to do it in our version, right? We want to kind of take it and sort of get there. Maybe instead of going the straight line that the comic takes, we want to go this way. And as you build any adaptation, you have to follow what these characters are doing. You're breathing life into a character. And
Mhm.
like with M, for instance, we were trying to figure out who is M, and she is very much the comic character, but in ours, she has this OI disease and this condition that we added to just add more depth, to add more backstory. And then you have to ask, okay, well, what does that mean? How does that character get from point A to point B and then from point B to point C? And then that changes everything that you do. So you sort of have to you don't, even if you want to sort of get there in a straight line, you can't once you've started to breathe life into a character. So a
Mhm.
lot of this was, we needed the Czech brothers to be a suspect. We wanted to craft a show that had different suspects. We kind of were looking like Mayor of Easttown was a really big inspiration for us. And so we wanted to have new suspects at the end of every episode, or as much as we could. And so the Czech brothers were obvious, people to do that with. So we had to integrate their story into M story, which is not the way it is in the comic. And then that, of course, led to this. So they evolved. They became bigger in our version than they are in the comic. But when you take a sort of bird's eye view, you can go, oh yeah, in the comic, M finds the Czech brothers. She goes frickin' ballistic on him. It's a turning point in her story. That's all there. That's there in the show. That's there in the comic. So it's just sort of like it's just kind of it's a cut. I call it where we're covering the comic in a way. We're doing our own spin on it. We're doing our own version of it. The touchstones are still there, but yeah, it's still sort of more. It's the TV version, right? So
Yeah, everything's inspired by the comic. So like there's nothing that is really coming from outside of the comic except for that you're taking the comics and you're putting them in a blender and you're kind of and all well the pieces that we wanted in this season one, right? So we took like Luke was here, those touchstones. So we're just imagine them like, different fruit and vegetables that you're throwing into this mixer, and we're like this one, this one, this one, this one, we're throwing it into this mixer, and then within that, now we've created the structure, which are who killed them, what caused Revival Day. And then you have these characters, and you're saying, what do they know? And then what do we owe as
Mhm.
to the audience, right? So then, and you take all those, you put them together, and then what are the thematic elements that are most important to Luke and I about the type of story that it is we're wanting to tell, about the themes and the big picture ideas and what that all is, and the Cypress family, and where we want our through line to be. And then you take that blender and you get it and it's all spun out, and then you kind of like get to make these like interesting smoothies of episodes that are all come from the comic. And then because even our central stories are from the comic, but it's going to be in a different world now because of how we were able to create it. And it's one of those things where I think fans of the comic will be able to be like, "Oh, I remember that from the comic," And there's other things like that didn't happen in the comic, but things don't happen the way that they did, but they are still infused in the scenes, in the characters, and the moments, and were the driving force behind it. So it's a different type of adaptation. It's not like Last of Us, which is just like the game, the show.
Yeah.
We're very different in that regard.
Yeah, but we like the idea of saying that you can be fans of both, but there might be people that I like the comic better or I like the show better. The
Mhm.
nice thing about that is you have two versions, and you can step back and say, oh, the way they got to this is really interesting, or the way they got to that is not as interesting, and that's up to you to decide. But we wanted to create something that allowed for that to sort of be familiar and have the spirit of the comic while still being its own thing, and that's always the goal for an adaptation.
All right, so episode 6, totally wild. By the end of that episode, the Czech's dead. Brent, whose name we finally figured out thanks to Luke,
Yeah.
dead. Jordan, fate unknown. McCrae basically out of the picture, though he could still be a character because he's still alive. This felt like a season finale, but it's episode 6 of a 10-episode season. I am totally curious as to where you guys are going to go for the remainder of the 4 episodes. But yeah, it was very brave of you guys to just wipe all those pieces off the board.
Well, it's interesting because I think we enjoy the process of answering a question with more questions. I think that's a fun thing. But you also reach a point where, as a viewer, I start to get frustrated when I'm like, okay, yeah, 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 that's fun for only so long. You can only sustain questions to a particular level. And eventually you have to give some real answers. So, or you have to show something, or you have to give the audience something. And I feel like so many times shows will just drag that out for seasons,
Mhm.
and I just don't enjoy it. That's just not what I enjoy in TV. So, rather than having an entire season of who shot Dana, like have Dana get shot and then an episode and a quarter, you know who shot her. Cool. I enjoy that as a viewer, and you have now, we did kind of sprinkle that on the comics, for example, the creature that you see at the end, which we call the passenger. The creature at the end is in the comics from the get-go. I mean, Cooper's playing with toys and you see this thing like right off the bat. So, we did kind of sprinkle that in and stretch that out a little bit. But I'm also reaching a point where I'm like, you kind of need to see the passenger now. Like this needs to happen. So we started to realize as we were kind of constructing the season and we were putting all of these like, these puzzle pieces up on our big board of what the season was going to be, that episode 6 just made a lot of sense for like, that's about the time this needs to happen. That's about the time this needs to happen. And rather than spread them out, it's like, why don't we just do this episode and make this quote unquote our second pilot? That's what we were thinking about, which is like reframing everything that happened before so that you're on a trajectory from there. And yeah, I mean that's also why, right off the bat, I was like, we're writing this one, because I was so close to it, was so excited about what it could mean, and feel like there's a lot of things that have just been slowly kind of building to this, and we wanted to feel that. But then at the same time, you know, you don't know who killed them. We still know what caused Revival Day. Like, the big questions still remain. But you were able to, like you said, move a few pieces off the board, give a few answers that are there, and then also know that, but also set the stage for something even bigger as we're going to come. And that was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, there's one of the things about this season is you start off with this big kind of revival day genre thing, right? Like this person coming back to life in a crematorium, and then the pilot has sort of this, we're not quite into the murder mystery yet. And so, you have these two questions. You've got who killed them and what caused Revival Day. And those two things sort of are, always kind of competing a little bit for attention. And so, for a lot of this first half of the season, we knew it needed to be the murder mystery, and we wanted to sort of, kind of get that. So you really get episode 2, 3, 4, and 5 are mostly murder mystery. We knew that you're gonna feel the lack of Revival Day by the time you get to episode 6. So it felt natural that, you don't want to do a full 10 episode season of just murder mystery. I mean, that's there. It's going to be there, and it comes right back after this. But the Revival Day mystery that's the mystery, right? That's the mystery of the show. So we needed to do something, and the Czech Brothers were a great opportunity to really push that forward, because just the idea of a reviver black market, it's one of my favorite things of the comics. I mean, it's so good. It's just so good. And there's stuff, I will say, there's even stuff about that we have not told you yet and will not tell you in this season. So like there's mysteries, there's levels of mystery to even that we'll get to at some point. So yeah.
Okay, so SyFy has a history of commenting on current day events through a certain lens, and we sort of start seeing the revivers being treated as second class citizens, very much like the Jim Crow South or um, Nazi Germany, or even what's going on today. Did you guys have
modern day Texas? Yes.
Yes. Did you guys have a specific inspiration for what's going on with that? Like, did you have a historical reference in mind, or?
I mean, it's an everyday thing, I mean, I don't know, Aaron, I don't know if you do. I don't know that I had it. Many ideas, I guess, in mind for that. It's just one of those things where I see it. It almost feels easier and easier to look at someone and other somebody, right? Like humans are so tribal, and we just tend to find these ways of closing ourselves or creating communities, but doing so and unfortunately in ways where it forces us to say, you can't be a part of this community. And we do it constantly. We're doing it now more than ever. I feel like we're finding new ways to other people. And it's just, what's so interesting about Revival to me is how easy it is for them to other these people, right? And in this case, it is they're just not even calling them people. And what I find it fascinating that there's this idea with Revival that, we sort of these characters understand what a zombie is, like what a George Romero zombie is, and therefore they're just waiting for these people, these revived people, to become that or to become something unfamiliar. And so they've decided that they already are. I mean, Wayne, I think that's a big thing with Wayne is that he's already closed himself off to their humanity, as a way to sort of just protect himself, protect the people, the people he thinks are people, and can't accept that they are people. And, when I say it, it sounds so simple and silly, but then I go on the internet and I see it happening. You know what I mean? Every day. I've seen it for so much of my life and for much of our history. So, yeah, I don't know that there's a very specific point in history that personally that I draw from, but I mean just looking out the window, you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's so many people operating out of fear, and whether that's, we become afraid, quote unquote, of immigrants because we're being told that immigrants are bringing drugs over the border and they're bad people and these things. So then you become fearful of something because you hear something that's there, and then you close yourself off to the community of those individual stories. But then what happens is then someone gets taken from their home that is your coworker, or your friend, or your partner, your literal life partner. These things happen, and then it hits home in a very different way. And I think that is part of the journey of, eventually here, I will say, without spoiling anything, that yes, Wayne is going to have to learn that M is a reviver, right? Like that's coming. And
Right.
so the weight of his decisions in the face of that reality are going to be an interesting thing to then clash and unpack. And I think about my family, in like the 90s and early 2000s, when they had opinions of what gay people were until a friend was gay, and then all of a sudden, oh, that's okay. And like, so this is how we want to, just out of fear, and I try, I think I'm being generous when I say some people do it out of fear. Some people don't do it out of fear. They just do it out of hatred. But we'll stay with the fear box for now. And but they do this out of fear, and they put them in a box, and then they're just waiting for them to make a mistake so they can point at it and say, yes, see, that's what I knew they were this whole time. And it becomes this preconceived notion of what it's going to be, and this manifest destiny of like bullshit that they want to try to do. And I think this show, this was in the comic, this stuff was in the comic. We're not out here trying to be preachy about it. We're just being real in our opinions of what we think would happen right now if this happened, right? So that's where this is coming from. We're just trying to be realistic. And then what's crazy is now we're watching the world and realizing that I don't think we've even gone far enough than what would have happened. Like we now are tame, and I'm like, wow, I had no idea that we were being tame, by creating this stuff. And I thought it was bad to suggest that people go to a camp, and now it's okay to suggest people go to an alligator Alcatraz. Like that's okay. I never thought of throwing revivers to alligators, but we think of doing it here in the United States, and it's like, okay, like how backwards messed up is this? And so we didn't even go far enough. And I think that there are people that would chop up immigrants if they thought it could make them money. I mean, that's just like that's the world that we live in now. So I'll get on a high horse and get worked up if I keep going. So I'll pull back from here. But it was important to us we weren't trying to make a political show. We're trying to make a show that is, because to me, it's not about politics. It's just about humanity. And we're trying to make a show that's talking about the dark side and the opportunities within humanity, and to show the decisions that are made within that. And that's all we're trying to make. And from there, you'll be able to draw those conclusions and find those parallels to so many parts of our history, the world's history, and unfortunately, present day. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Talking about the chopping of the body parts, let's talk about the horror element of this series, because at the beginning, I would have put horror pretty low on the list of genres you're covering. But now, after episode 6, we've got some pretty strong body horror, and it's a lot darker. I don't know if there's a question in here, but
Thank you.
I guess just about the decision to really change it once we got this far in, to really give us so much more gore than we had earlier. Like, were you holding back earlier on purpose, or is this episode particularly, are you just trying to hit a deeper point? It feels like the script has been completely flipped, not just story wise, but like I said, with the gore itself.
I mean, look, okay, so I am an advocate of horror like in my bones. Okay.
Yeah.
So like I get frustrated when people say elevated horror because that's bullshit. Like they don't say elevated drama or elevated comedy, right? Like people think of horror and they want to put it in a particular box of like what horror needs to be. And I just don't believe that's what horror is. This is a horror show. And I think, but within it, it's got humanity and it has heart, which is a motto of my company, of horror with heart, and that's the thing that matters to us. And I think in order, Roger Ebert talked about how in film, our protagonist, it's just like the ultimate empathy machine. And I think that that's because you are immersed in a world where you're watching someone, and you care so much about what they're doing. So you're forcing a viewer to put yourself in their shoes and understand their plight and understand their journey. Well, when you take that to horror, you're now shrieking because you don't want them to die. So the amount of empathy goes through the roof because you're just like, don't die. Like, I care about these people. And if you think about shows where you've had this reaction where you're crying because someone has died, or you're actually mad because they have died, the amount of empathy, that's not a real person. That's not a real thing, right? And you think about what that has now created within us, I think is a really, really special thing. And horror allows you to do that and amp it up to another level. And I think I'm a big believer in picking your spots and when you show that and what's there. And, but also I will say that I'm an advocate of horror. So I want the world to realize that they're watching a horror show and be like, oh my God, I like horror now. I didn't know I like horror. Like, that's what I want the world to come out of this, because it is to me a little bit of gateway horror. I mean, don't be wrong. Arlene's pulling on our teeth. We're slicing her head off, in the first episode. But this was always kind of meant to be, okay, we can probably pull you in a little bit of a murder mystery and the sister story and interesting supernatural elements, and then kind of all of a sudden realize like, oh my God, I'm in a full-blown horror show, And I think that's a lot of fun. Now, don't get me wrong, not every episode is like episode 6, because we are picking and choosing our spots. We don't want to whiplash you with the tone in that regard. But we also want you to feel the violence when the violence is there, because that will create more empathy and create more connection to the visceral nature of not only what the Czech brothers are doing. Because think about it, if you don't see Tommy the Torso and you don't realize the horrors that are going on with him, then and we know that M has to come and wreck shit with these people. Like, you need to feel the level at which they're willing to go so that you can justify the actions at where she's going to go. And so these things kind of come in tandem and go hand in hand. So, I think the writing was on the wall the whole time. If you're kind of looking and you're noticing and what's there, and I wish the whole show was more violent, and was there because it's what I love and enjoy. But I think at its core, we also realized we were making a family story, a murder mystery that was in there with the supernatural twist, and so we don't want to. Some people they'll turn off and they're like, oh, it's a horror show. I don't want to watch a horror show, and they'll turn it off. So we didn't want to have that at the get-go. But at the same time, I identify with it as a horror show from episode 1, page 1. Yeah,
Yeah.
first images.
Genres are interesting things because, you know, it is a true crime show, right? So, and it's really a sci-fi true crime, if anything. So I think that's I think that's a subgenre of horror, in my opinion. I mean, a lot of that stuff, is horror to me. And so it already lives in the space there, and then we just, the nice thing about TV is you have more time to build that. I mean, we really spend time, and one of the best things about watching this play out has been seeing how people relate and get caught up in the drama of the Cypress family. And that was the intent. It's so wonderful to see it work because an episode 6 is works the way it works because of what we've given you before that, because of what we built that. If we were doing episode 6 and episode 3, I don't think it'll work as well. It just feels too big, too chaotic, and too forced. So, it's hard, it's risky to say, hey, it's hard to go, hey, just give it, keep watching, and you're gonna get to this kind of, to the big crazy stuff. But, it's rewarding. I think everything that Aaron's talking about is 100% true. And it rewards you. And you get to kind of have fun then at that moment. The horror part of it that's where things get really fun. And that's partly why we have the body horror and we have the creature horror in 6. Like we've got all the elements that we just threw at it and we're just like, yeah, screw it. Like here we go. The end of episode 6 is just gonna be, you know, bang. Here, we're just gonna blow it up. So
Yeah, episode 6 does not give you a moment to breathe.
oh, that was intentionally.
Favorite moment from episode 6?
Oh,
It's interesting you saying, by the way, not an opportunity to breathe, because the original intent that Luke and I had was for it to be real time.
mhm.
We thought the episode was going to be, if it's 45 minutes, it was going to take place over a 45-minute period of time.
Kind
So
of like
there was
24.
kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, a little bit like an episode.
Talked about
Exactly. So we talked about that, but then there were constructs that became difficult. But so it's meant to feel like you're shot out of a cannon,
Mhm.
and you're just, and that really does happen from by the time Dana gets the phone call and it starts a ticking clock. And then it's like, I've got to get here before this truck and this truck before they get to the borders to save these lives, and this is it. And that does start a ticking clock with there. But Luke, I'll defer to you for your first, your favorite moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, number one, the end with Jordan, I cry at every single time. There's not been a moment that I've watched this episode, and I've watched it many times, that I, at the very least, don't get pretty choked up. Just the way that she turns around and says, "Thank you all for being so kind to me." It just, like, even when I say it, I feel like I starts to get pulling my heartstrings. But my favorite moment, I would say, is probably the Brent and Dana fight. Um, just the story around that, just the idea that we got, never surrender. Is that the name of it? Yeah.
Yeah, never surrender. Yeah, Stan Bush.
The huge, so much of this episode, most of it, I would even say, we were told we could not do. So there's a story of episode 6, which is Aaron and I, and in a lot of cases, Aaron, because this is kind of what he does. He stands up. I'm very conflict averse, so I tend to sort of be, but Aaron does not give a shit, which is what makes him such a wonderful partner, to someone like me. But he's like, no, no, this is what we're gonna do, and it was time constraints, schedule, money constraints, logistical constraints. I mean, we we were told, like, just the warehouse that we were in for the Czech Brothers, we were told multiple times we could not use it. We were pushed and pushed not to use it. It was crazy. It was this old printing press building, and it was a safety nightmare. But we walked in there and we were like, oh my God. And so there was just all these elements, but the schedule,
Sam Punk.
yeah,
Sam Punk scheduling, which was we were told we couldn't bring in Punk for the show.
it was
Yeah.
it was insane. And so and then we were told that we couldn't have the fight, like just do the fight in a way that we wanted to do. We didn't have the time to really get all these stunts out. We had an amazing crew that just were constantly stepping up and knew what we were trying to do, and really just like bought into the vision. And so Like that's a scene where our stunt guy, Max White, who also works on The Boys and is incredible, just came in and just he choreographed this amazing fight sequence that, and then Samir directed the absolute hell out of it, and then was so great because we were like, we had been told you're not going to be able to do this, so we wrote in this music video segment because we are like, well, the worst case scenarios we'll just cut away to the TV. It was kind of the idea there. And so we're trying to think about what what to actually make we in terms of a music video. And we were like, we should do this 80s thing. What if we could get like the song from Kickboxer? It would be incredible. And then Aaron had this amazing connection and we were able to actually get the song. We were joking about it first. So we were able to get the song, and then but the song didn't have a music video, so we had to build our own music video. It just there was so many elements to that scene that I think became a microcosm of this episode and how we got this episode made. I'm beaming with pride about. So
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that
still
scene
it's
sorry, I was gonna say that scene is really beautiful. And I'm not a fan of action. Normally during that type of scene, I would just zone out, but just even the way like the cinematography and like watching the reflections through the TV, and it was like it was gorgeous.
Yeah,
oh, thank
we talked pretty extensively in episode 6 just how cool that scene was. So yeah,
I can't wait to hear. Yeah.
yeah,
yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it was a lot of fun to do. And I mean, it was a lot crazier. The first version I wrote was even crazier. There was like a water fountain inside and like that sprayed and they were off and someone gets electrocuted and all these things. And, it just goes crazier and we had to pare it down. But it was really fun. We pulled off, again, credit to Max White and Samir and, and Mel, who's like so physical within that, and Brent, Mark Little, plays Brent. They're so physical, and then the stunt doubles, what they pulled off. Yeah, it's really, and it's fun. I mean, I think I like hearing what you were saying there, Stacie, because you're like, I don't normally like action, but you couldn't look away. And I think the hope was that would be the case because we want this show, first and foremost, we just want to be fun. We want it to be enjoyable. And whether that's in the drama, there's twists and there's things that like, at the end of every episode, you set an expectation that something's going to happen. And we know that, and we want you to be excited, like, oh, something's going to happen, because that's what they always do, and that's true. That will continue to be the case for as long as we get to make the show. I think that is something that we enjoy doing, and with this, it's like, okay, have the song, and it's fun because it's like, there's a bedpan and piss hits them, and this, and so you can still have fun within the normal action beats of that, that are there. So yeah, it's a really special moment. It's tough. Like, there's a lot of things that I love so much about this episode, and I think the culmination of the finale, it's like hard for me not to pick that, and it's in which is a number of different things. But it starts with something that I think is important, and this is back to my soapbox of why I think horror is important as a genre. But you know, M in particular, right? So in the comic, she didn't have the drug abuse and she didn't have OI, the brittle bone disease. And so you have someone who her entire life has been inhibited by her bones, have like literally limited her ability to do things in the world. And she couldn't do things because she was so fragile and her bones would break. Cut to this moment in revival, and she's with this nefarious, wrestler, CM Punk, and she's with Anthony Check. And what does she have to do in order to save her life and her sister's life? She must now physically break her own bones and use them as a weapon. And there was something without, dare I say, but darkly poetic as a goal to try to understand that. And that's where horror allows you to take something that's so crazy, right? And again, talk about a thing we were told we couldn't do. The amount of times we were told you can't do that, you can't do that, you can't do that. And I was like, no, it's not just a cool kill, because it is a cool kill. You're just like, the casual watch on your phone, which please, dear God, don't. But if that is what you are, it's still like, okay, that's fun. Oh, that's cool. That's a cool kill. But it's a cathartic, character defining moment for M to take the weakness and use it as her strength. And so for that alone, and then that kicks off this now cross-cutting, culminating thing with the passenger, the creature, another thing we were told we could not do, had to be CGI. We made a puppet, did the whole thing, all this. That line made me cry as well. I remember writing it, thank you all for being so kind to me, and just like, oof, okay, this is choking me up right now. This young girl who's been shunned everywhere she's been. Students in her class that want to stab her with a pencil. That her parents don't even want her anymore. Principals are like, whatever, let her stay. Like nobody seems to care about her, but the Cypress family did. Ibrahim cares about her. Jordan cares about her. They're defending her, and that's what she needed to allow her the closure to whatever this means to go on toward this creature that was a puppet and is awesome and is so cool that we got to shoot a puppet and do this that way. Because that's what horror gives you. It allows you to create creatures and puppets and things to to show you the sides of humanity through horrific things and scary things and creatures. And that's what makes horror so special and so fun. So how that all comes together, the music in particular, I think that adds a layer to that with what Lydia Ainsworth, one of our two composers, alongside Alex Cuervo, did. And, Andy McQueen playing Ibrahim, who just puts his hand over his face and drops that perfect tear. And we time the needle drop song to the tear hitting, and seeing that M truly has the ability to help a sister who has helped her entire life, who has gone out of her way to protect M, now is dying and there's no coming back. But M is the one person in the world who can stop that. And I think, and the music and all that culminating and all that, and the fact that we made that work, and it starts with something as brutal as her breaking her own arm and using her own bone to kill someone, I think is one of my favorite things I've ever done as a creative, and I'm most proud of, is the last 5 minutes of this episode. I think is it's exactly the kind of things that I want to make, and is it's my baby, and I'm so immensely proud of it. Yeah.
Is Jordan gone? Is she done as a character? If you can answer that question.
I mean, she definitely disappeared.
Right.
We saw that.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if it was like she was dead or if she was transporting somewhere, or I didn't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to think how to answer that question without being spoilery.
Right.
Well, I will say in another interview I did say, so I guess I can say the thing I said there, which is Jordan is not coming back. I will say that.
Okay. Gotcha.
But what has happened to Jordan? She's no longer in Wausau. Let's put it that way for sure. And is not coming back at this moment. So what that all means is something that will be unfolded in the episodes to come.
All right. So thanks to Luke, we know the actual date that the series is supposed to be taking place in. And by the way, Luke, it was really amazing to see that not only were you listening, but you went point by point, talking about the points that we made in the podcast. That was really amazing to have a creator of a show do that. So that was really amazing. But okay.
I don't think Aaron knows about this. Yes.
No? Okay.
No.
Yeah. I gave notes on their podcast. So I was listening, and then I had to correct several things. So I put on the Facebook group, and I literally time coded the thing. I was like, well, this is actually this. So yes. Sorry.
All right.
Probably too much that I should have done, but a lot of it was writers, there was some confusion. There was some IMDb confusion early on that got fixed. So yeah. And we noticed an issue, the update issue that is in the show that we're trying to get fixed, actually.
Oh, is that thanks to us?
What's that?
Is that thanks to us that you're going to correct that?
I believe so.
Wow, that's insane.
The hospital.
The stub.
I don't know if you know. It says 2008, and it should say 2007.
Yeah.
So, but we're working on that, actually.
Okay, so is 2008 the date something that actually happened in the comic. Is that the date in the comic, or did you specifically choose that date for a specific reason for the show?
We chose it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we chose it. Yeah, the comic is 2012 or so.
Hmm.
It's present day at the time the comic came out, which started to come out in 2012.
Hmm.
No, and then yeah, Luke and I wanted to be able to make a period piece without having to spend the money to be a period piece, So that was part of it, right? 2008, it's kind of just you just don't show a Tesla, for the most part. And it's kind of close or iPhones. But it was also, I think there's a few things. Like one, at that era, at that time is like the age of like, Dana's character's age at the time in 2008 is basically our age at the time in 2008. And so we kind of like had some parallels to like what that meant and or close to, some things that we kind of went through and understood. I'm not that old. That's not completely right. But either
Well, yeah.
way,
Her, her age
Romy.
changed, yeah, but that was
Yeah,
the
yeah.
idea. That was the idea. Yeah.
That was the original idea. And then also, we just didn't want to deal with social media. That was a big thing. So I was
Okay.
like, oh my God, does this mean that like someone's gonna fly a drone with a YouTube channel like over Wausau and and there's TikToks. I just don't want Reviver TikToks. Like that was not my thing. So
Oh,
Yeah,
that'd be pretty cool.
the no, the show, the idea of revival is that it's landlocked, right? So like there's no this town is quarantined, and we kind of wanted to do that in terms of time period as well, because the idea, if you're even a couple years later, this becomes bigger than what we can do, right? We want to make a show that feels insular, that feels like we're really hyper focused on a small group of people, or at the very least, a small town. And as soon as you introduce social media, you just really blow that up. Because I know, Rhodey, for instance, in the comic is a YouTuber. And we just didn't want to, it just you have to deal with the global aspect of that. And so we wanted to pull back from the wildfire of information that is there. Now it's still there. The internet's still a thing, and we're on the cusp of it, but we're just not in social media 2.0 world yet, really. So that was a big thing. It was just really trying to keep things contained more than anything.
yeah, there's a fun time capsule at that time.
Yeah.
There's like the live journal starting of the MySpace world, message boards type of thing that I was nostalgic for of the internet, of like before I thought it became a complete toxic shithole. So I think there was still something there, and where people were just kind of like still fascinated by it rather than trying to, monetize every aspect of it. So yeah.
All right. Settle a question for us. If a reviver, their head gets cut off, which part grows back?
We had this
Does the
conversation.
head grow a new body or does the body grow a new head? If it was
The
chopped straight here.
So that's a good question. So the we are basically it's center mass out, right? So it's like, where is the sort of the central aspect of what is the body, and then it grows from there. It's kind of the rule that we sort of determined. So, like for instance, you cut a foot off, the foot doesn't grow a body, the body grows a foot. Because that's where, the central nervous system, the main aspects of the body are going to be there. Now, head to body
I
is a
don't know.
good question.
Body would grow ahead. I think body would
Yeah,
grow
yeah.
ahead because it's well, and we actually there's another reason why I know that to be true, but I don't want to say it here, Luke,
Okay,
because
okay.
it's kind of
Yeah,
spoilery. But yeah, like in my opinion, the body grows ahead. And I think with Arlene, you've already seen some of that, right? She's scalp, she grows, starts, and what's nice if
her
you
brain
watch,
grows, yeah.
you're seeing her start to come back. So like, there's actually stages to Arlene. You see
Yeah.
her later. There's like more of her head back than there is at the beginning. There was a thing that we wanted to have, we couldn't have in season one, but it'll probably happen if we're lucky to have a season two, which is someone who was cremated and their body and their and all of the that is slowly becoming a fleshy thing inside a CDC, capsule. and you're seeing that become something. So that would actually a cremated, individual would start to revive over it would take a very long time for it to form a body again. But yes, that's the idea.
There was a fun thing with Arlene that we wanted to do that we couldn't really. Those first three episodes, we had this whole storyline that was much more fleshed out with her in terms of where what is actually happening is her brain is growing back, so her memories are coming back. So the reason she goes into the maternity ward and all that stuff, she's remembering Terry. So she's remembering Terry as a baby, and then she's remembering her, and until she finally makes it head fully grown back to the funeral. And we had this whole storyline where they were chasing her much more in early drafts that kind of had to get pulled back a bit. But that was the idea, that her brain, her actual memories are growing back little by little. So
Wow.
I forgot that baby scene.
Yeah.
yeah.
Lots happened since then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's just something we had actually spent a lot of time talking about, because with her, like, it was a little bit of her brain that got cut off.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It's fun. No, we want people to think about those questions, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of fun like reviver ideas behind this, and what does that mean, and that we don't get to fully explore, but we had so many discussions about that are fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, on the same vein, another thing we spent a lot of time talking about was M's hair. Like, her hair doesn't grow back when she cuts it.
Yeah.
Is that just because hair is dead? Or
Kind of. Yeah, kind of. I mean, I think it's and we've talked about this too, and we both have kind of different theories as to what that is and what that means to us. But yeah, yeah, like it's not its own organism, So, well, trying to think of how I would have phrased this, but no, it's not. It was never. We didn't want to get to a point because it's dead. It's like coming out and it's dead. So it's not like hair coming from the follicles are like will come out. That's there, but it's not like trying to. It's not like you cut it and then that would just be like a weird thing and would just be an odd story to have the entire time in revival versus that it's kind of like dead skin cells and stuff that you have. You know what I mean? Like if you wash your hands, it's not like all day her hands like recoding and recoding, for what happens. Like there's little cellular things that I think once you start to get into hair starts to get into odd places of what's happening physiologically with the body that we didn't necessarily want to go to kind of have a more clean angle too, if you will.
There's also that thing of just, what do they do and when you're not looking? There's a lot of things happening off screen too, so you never know.
Yeah, that's true
She
too.
might just be
That's true
cutting her
too.
hair all the time. I mean, we're not seeing her go to the bathroom all the time. So that's like that question I remember with 24. You also, it's like, when is he going to the bathroom? Cutting her
I
hair.
do
Is she
wonder
gonna be
that.
good?
I did wonder that actually. I still do. Felt a little odd. So
So in the opening of episode 6, you have a flashback to M being born. We had a question about what exactly Dana's age was at this point.
she's like 16, I think.
Yeah, she's
Okay.
16. Yeah, she's
Okay.
roughly 16 years older than him. Yeah.
Yeah, because we had originally there was a scene where she was asking to be able to borrow the car because she just got her license,
Mhm.
and that got cut, and just kind of we focused it at the hospital. But yeah, about 16 years older.
Mhm.
oh yes. We're going to talk a little bit about casting. So we'll go back to creation of the show.
Mhm.
You have such an amazing ensemble cast. I think you've got all the perfect people playing these parts. What was the casting process like, and getting all of these people involved in this? And was there anybody who you were hoping to get or trying to get, or people you specifically had in mind when you were creating the roles?
Sure.
Yeah, I
Anything
mean,
to that to discuss?
there's a lot. Yeah, I mean, we had to. Dana was the big one, right? So Dana, we spent a lot of time figuring out Dana, because obviously M and Dana are sisters. So whoever we get for M has to sort of match Dana, has to have that chemistry with her. So that was the big domino that needed to fall. for us to get everything else. I mean, there was a few people here and there that we would. I think Gia was one of our first, who plays Nithya. Was one of the first people we cast. So yeah, and then M in general was, and I'll go broad here, and Aaron, you can get specific if you want, but M, we cast a pretty wide net, and we got hundreds of tapes, and it took a while. It took a while to figure out M. Casting was super late, because it took a while to get Dana, and then once we got Dana, and then took a while to get M, and we were getting pretty close to production. We had our costume department was freaking out because we did not give much time. But we just knew. I think it paid off because I do agree that our cast is phenomenal. It's one of my favorite things about the show. And there's very specific things like David James Elliott was suggested by our one of our producers, executive producers, international sales. And then like Stephen Ogg, for instance, was Stephen came from Aaron, this amazing pursuit that Aaron made, just thinking who is a perfect Blaine, because our Blaine is very different than the Blaine in the comic, and Aaron was really sold on Stephen and was like, I'm just gonna write him a letter, and he did, and it was a beautiful letter, and Stephen took the call, and we started talking to him, and he loved the character, and he came on because of those pursuits. And so yeah, and then most of it came from the normal casting process. I think it was. I know you guys are big. You did From, right? You did a lot of.
Yeah.
So we like one of our Hannah Jeremy was someone that we were looking at for M early on that I know Aaron was really interested in. But once we saw Romy's audition tape, it was just like but Aaron and I were in a room together, and we looked at each other and we're like, is this M? Like we were literally crying at her audition tape.
Yeah, we saw a lot. We saw a lot of Jessica Clement was someone we really loved,
Mm-hmm.
to Hannah
Yeah.
Jeremy, Katie Douglas. There were a number of folks that we were very interested in, but Romy just kind of leapt off the page, if you will. I mean, um, there was just something about that you wanted to protect her, which was nice. We wanted someone small in stature that could become. We knew what was going to happen in episode 6. We knew what she was going to become, and so you have to feel that arc, and you want to have someone that can carry the emotional weight. And so many of these amazing actors that we were looking at, like they could all carry this emotional weight, but they also have to look right next to Mel. They have to kind of feel like sisters, and there's a look and a feel there. And then but there's a journey that you're seeing start to take place. It's really the when M puts on the hoodie in episode 4, there's like starts to be a literal physical transformation, right? Cutting her hair, but the way she moves, her posturing, all of this starts to really change. And if you really pay attention, you can see how that happens in her performance. And that is only going to kind of grow from here and what that's going to become. So that was a big part of it. But yeah, the casting process was, I mean, it's tough. It's always tough because we're ambitious, and we want the absolute best people. So we're like, no, not good enough. No, let's find someone else. Let's find someone else. And so we pushed hard, and it was tough. I will say that we put in a lot of requests to look at comedians. Like that was a thing. Like I'm a big believer in that comedians can usually do drama, and a lot of drama actors can't always do comedy. So that was something that I've always believed in, and so we leaned into that. But there's a lot of, I mean, Graham Barrett, who plays Randy, was, literally Luke's like, look at this guy, this is funny, and I'm like, he'd be great, and then I just message him, and there was an email I saw, and I emailed, and then next thing over, there's a conversation, and then he's doing tapes for us, and now I can't imagine anybody else playing Randy. So it's yeah, you're just constantly juggling so many aspects, knowing that so much of our job is picking the right actors. Like that's so much of what the showrunner's job is, right? We're story first focused, and then it's like, well, who can make these stupid words sound cool and feel relevant? And I one of the things I'm most excited about is, regardless of what happens with the show or whatever's there, is that these amazing people, which we had a no asshole policy and our actors were not assholes, and it was amazing. that they are going to have some great tape that they're going to be able to show and be proud of, that we push them performance wise and what they're able to do and do unique things. Like none of them are just run of the mill characters. They all have a personality. They feel real. They have a story to tell. There's backgrounds and arcs for all of them that whether it all makes it onto screen or not was still part of that journey. And so I'm just really proud to have the cast because I think it's stellar. And a lot of people will say that. Like anytime you talk to like a showrunner or a director or whatever, they'll be like, "Oh, my cast, all this." Probably half the time they're lying. And but we're not. This is true. It's complete and utter love and adoration for our cast because they were like I mean I'm so proud of the cast we got. So proud.
I think we're basically out of questions. Is there anything you want to tease us about for what to expect for the rest of the season?
Oh man.
Chaos. No, no. You know, like I think that it's important to us. Like Luke and I talked a lot about constructing this from the perspective of a viewer, right? It wasn't just what does the story need to be? It was part of it was like, well, what would be fun if I was watching this show? And what are the ways to kind of construct something that, for example, Aaron in episode 4 gets shot, right? And he's there. And it was one of those things where there's a moment in the comic that's great where Dana's kind of on the trail and she's on to Aaron a little bit and then she finds Aaron dead in the comic. And number one, we were like, okay, well, let's take that and let's add to it and let's like get Dana shot too and all this stuff and like write ourselves into a corner and have to figure that out, which is really fun. But then, beyond that, I think I also was like, man, I just think Aaron, if I'm the audience, I'm just like, Aaron did it. I think Aaron did it. Like, you can make me think it's this or this. I think Aaron has something to do with this. And then if I had to sustain that for 10 episodes, I would be really frustrated. So, or however many episodes, like, I'm just like, I'd be frustrated. So, why don't we give them this? That, like, Aaron took her from the bridge. Aaron was there, right? At bare minimum, he is involved in her murder, seriously involved in her murder, right? Whether or not he fully murdered, maybe working with someone, there's a little bit of a conspiracy at hand. It appears at this point, through episode 6, and so but it was important to give the audience some of those answers. So that's my long-winded way of saying we are cognizant of the questions that just lead to questions that just lead to questions, and then you're just like, okay, I don't even know what the first question was anymore, and you get so lost in the just the barrage of information and twists. And I think we want to find ways to give answers. We want to find ways to have something feel rewarding in those moments. And the show will reward those who stick with it. I can just tell you that definitively. Like you are going to find big answers will be coming in this season. You're not going to have to wait for a future season, things like that. We will give you big, big, big answers here. And that's important because I don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to be there. We want at minimum for this season to be able to stand alone and to feel rewarding and to feel like you're not shortchanged. But at the same time, there is a huge build up to things to come that hopefully, people resonate with when they get to the end of episode 10. But it still is something that those who are willing to stick with it, we were thinking about you and we appreciate it. And we know how hard it is to compete for your time among all the amazing shows that are out there. So you will be rewarded for that time and effort. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I'll say that, as crazy as episode 6 is, everything on the other side of it, there's plenty more where that came from. I wouldn't say that it's exactly on, like we don't replicate episode 6, but we're gonna surprise you. I think the second half of this season will surprise people. 7, I love 7. There's a lot of really great character stuff that happens in 7. Some really cool insights. 8
An escalation.
and
7 is a
yeah,
pretty big escalation too,
yeah,
as far as
major.
like the general story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
8 I think is going to surprise people. I think for my money, 6 and 8 are two of my probably top favorite episodes of the season, and then 9 and 10 are insane, and there's stuff and everything that I think people will just be really surprised by. So
Yeah, I would say of my favorite episodes of the entire season, 4 or 5 are the second half. So it's pretty close. Yeah.
Before we go, is there any other projects that you guys want to plug or anything that you guys got going on that you'd like to share?
I don't want to think about them. There's too many. I don't want to think about them because this is too much stuff to do. I do have a movie that I helped produce that is very near and dear to me called Shelby Oaks that we sold to Neon that is coming out October 3rd. We'll also be there at San Diego Comic-Con, ripping that
Oh yeah,
movie.
yeah, yeah.
Chris Stuckman wrote and directed that. Really, really like bleak, awesome, dark horror film, super scary. Um, Trailer will be coming soon, and it's awesome. It's really good. And then we have a couple other movies that are coming out later. We have a movie called The Bunker with Tony Todd and Tobin Bell. It's a little sci-fi horror. Another movie called Bloodshine. That's like a folk horror, very artistic, very unique, from Emily Bennett and Justin Brooks. That I think is wonderful, with like Larry Fessenden and Toby Poser and a bunch of like indie horror people. And then we have another movie called that's about to be announced soon. By the time this airs, it'll be announced because it's announcing this week, called Remote, with Adrian Palicki from John Wick and Friday Night Lights starring in that. That's a pretty good thriller horror film. So we got a bunch of stuff that's upcoming here. Yeah. Yeah.
Luke, you got anything?
Revival. Revival's that's my thing.
You meant
More eventually, but nothing. Yeah, not in that vein. Coming out soon.
you mentioned Comic-Con. You just reminded me that we didn't talk about how Revival is going to be at Comic-Con. You guys are going to go do a panel there. You want to tell everybody what day and time they can catch that if they are going to San Diego Comic-Con this year?
Yeah, we're very excited to be at Comic-Con. It feels, especially coming off of this episode. So we're excited, for people to see it and then be able to chat with us in real time. Friday, July 25th is when the panel is at 10:30, I believe, in room 6A. And then there'll be a signing afterwards at the Image booth. And we've got an exclusive print that Mike Norton, the artist of the comic, has done so exclusively for the con that people can grab there and get signed. So yeah, and meet Melanie will be there, Romy will be there, Andy and David James Elliott. So our 4 main cast will be there, and then Aaron and I and Tim and Mike as well. So
That's amazing.
very excited.
Wish we could be
Yeah.
there.
Yes, it would be
Yeah.
awesome to go.
Yeah. It'll be a
All
blast.
right. Well, we'd like to thank you guys for coming on. It was an amazing conversation. Definitely amazing to talk to you guys. We're looking forward to the rest of season 1 and the 20 seasons that happen after that.
Oh God, no,
Yeah.
they're not doing 20 seasons. But thank you. I will
5,
take
6, 7.
2,
Yeah.
3. I'll be very happy. I'll be very happy. So thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank
y'all
you
talking
guys,
about our
yeah.
show, though.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you
I
guys
love the
so much for
podcast.
taking time to hang out with us. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It's our honor. Thank you.
And that was our conversation with Luke Boyce and Aaron Koontz.
That was
amazing.
That was amazing. That was a
Right.
great conversation. Feel so honored that they both took time out of, I know, their very busy lives to come hang out with us.
To come talk with us.
Come talk with us, right? They had a lot of great things to say and a lot of how should I say, anticipation to see these next 4 episodes.
I'm excited. I definitely want to watch these episodes right now.
I know, but we can't because we don't have it the next
Right.
episode
Nope,
yet.
nope, not yet.
Not yet. We're waiting for the next screener to hit our inbox. Very impatiently waiting.
All right. Well, we'd like to hear from you. What'd you think of this interview? What'd you think of the podcast in general? Are you enjoying Revival? Let us know in your comments. Stacie, we reached out.
Mike reached on Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Skies at TVN Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support the channel, the number of ways to do so, you can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join one of my Korman Productions Facebook pages. You can buy something from the Korman Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee. You can join the Korman Productions membership for 99 cents a month. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video as well as subscribe to the channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Korman Productions, signing off.